Okay, great. It's great to be here. And yeah, so Gorkem will be monitoring the chat, and he will put some handouts in there as well if I'm too fast or you want to go back to some slides. Okay, so I got 45 minutes, so let me jump straight into paper. So the title is Informative Certification Screening versus Acquisition. So certification is the keywords. So let me start our definition of a certifier or certification. So certifier is for us an intermediary who discloses information publicly to the market. Okay. So there are many examples. Rating agencies, they certify financial assets. Accounting firms certify financial statements. Testing agencies are there to certify the quality of consumer products. And even you can see rating reviews on Amazon as the ability of consumers to rate the quality among themselves. You can even see universities as trying to certify the quality of their potential students. Okay. So we think they play a very crucial role in modern economics. Yeah. And rather than giving you numbers how big the industry is, it's actually more convincing, I think, to see what goes wrong, yeah, when they don't work well. Yeah? So some people say we would not have had financial crisis if the rating agencies had done their job. Okay. Some say Enron would still be around, and also Arthur Andersen, that was the accounting firm that certifies the financial statements from Enron. That's also when something wrong there. And there are even people saying that eBay's decline versus Amazon's rise may have been attributed to the rating reviews. eBay was more rating the transaction, and Amazon was more rating the product and the quality. Okay. So even though we think certification is really important economically and should therefore be understood, yeah, we still think it's not well understood in theory. Yeah. And it goes even back to basic economic principles. And I would like to put here two questions, yeah, where we think the literature is not very clear about. Yeah, do certifiers disclose existing information or new information? And the second question is, what is actually the channel by which certification becomes really informative? Okay, so that's why you now understand the title, informative certification. Okay. So the paper's goal, yeah, is to understand certification better, focusing on these two questions. And we're going to do that in the context of a monopolistic certifier, because in practice, certification industries are highly concentrated. So we'll take that for granted. We don't explain that here. There's other work. I contributed a little bit to that too. Yeah. And then you want to understand what market power does that in these markets. And if there are distortions, so we look at the distortions of monopolistic certification. Okay. So let me get back to these two questions. Yeah. So what do I mean that is unclear or that certification discloses existing or new information? So basically, you can see that there are two views in economic theory, yeah, of what certification does. And the classical perspective is to say that certification, yeah, certifies private information. A seller being privately informed about the quality, like in Viscusi, who add that to the Akerlof model, yeah, shows that then there is a demand for certification, and that solves the adverse selection problem. Okay, the theory builds on that. I'll come back to that paper, and many subsequent papers follow this approach. My work too. Okay. By contrast, there is a newer literature. Yeah, you can see the difference in the dates. Yeah, which views or models certification as providing new information. So this is not known by anybody. It's really generating new information. And this comes from the information design literature, and it's an application of this literature. Yeah, so actually I was, I made aware of these differences when he had a few papers, when Andreas and Rand's paper, yeah, was saying they were doing certification, but there was no private information. Yeah, and I wondered about that, and I said, no, that's not certification. Now it's very hard to teach an old dog like me new tricks, but finally I recognized that, yeah, certification in practice is really a mix of the two. So if I certify my car to sell it on a market, yeah, the certifier will, yeah, confirm my feeling of the car, whether it's a good one or a bad one, but I will also learn new information. Yeah, the certifier will tell me exactly how much the wear was on the tires, what the exhaustion combination is of CO2 gas and stuff like that. So I learn also new things myself. Yeah. And it's not only about revealing private information. Okay. Now, given that certification does both things, yeah, you may want to know, yeah, how do these disclosure forms differ and interact? And economically, it's quite different, right? So if you have private information and certification is there to raise the information playing field, it's only doing this for the uninformed party. Yeah. Whereas if you provide new information, then the information playing field goes up for everybody. Okay. Now, in order to study this, we then need a certification model, yeah, with partial private information. So there is some private information, but it's not fully informative. And there are some people, some papers doing that, but we can discuss what we do differently to them at the end of the talk. Okay. So let me now come to the second question. Yeah, this information channel. Yeah, and this is related to the first. Yeah, and this is yeah. So Roberto with his paper was very helpful and to us to make us aware that we are actually addressing this. Yeah, because you could see again two channels by which certification can generate information. Okay. The first channel is exactly the classical, or the by now classical information design approach, is to say information is really hard information. Yeah, you get new information into the system, then you Bayesian update. Yeah, and if we do it like that, then certification is really an information acquisition device, basically. Yeah. Now, there's another very different way in which certification can provide information. And this is via what we call, yeah, in line with Roberto, soft channel, soft information, yeah, which is actually introduced by endogenous behavior. Yeah, so I think this is the best way to see what I mean and the difference to hard information. Say that I don't certify my car. I just offer my car uncertified to the market. Yeah, and then the market will probably infer from that some information that my car is bad. Okay? And this is, of course, completely different from the information design, the hard information part. So here certification is more like a screening device. Yeah. And this is what we call the soft channel. And now you may ask again, yeah, how does the hard and the soft information transmission differ and interact? And the literature is silent about that, and we would like to understand it better. Okay. So the idea of this is that we present a model that captures and disentangles both aspects, yeah, existing, revealing, certifying private information versus new, and then also combining this with the hard and the soft information channel. Okay. Now for this, it's quite a lot to do, yeah. So the model should be rich enough to capture what we want to study, so private information and new information. And I already told you that because of that, we will have a model with partially private information. We need that, yeah, which are a little bit more complicated, but that's what we need to do, yeah. And then we have to have some way of modeling the soft versus hard information. And this we will do with a public screening channel. Yeah? On the other hand, we want our model to be simple enough that we can still clearly identify the key economic forces and then have something to say about the distortion of monopolistic certification. Okay. So I think we do a reasonable job in that, but you have to decide whether the model is good enough. You always want to go further, but let me now address the model, because the model, like I said, is quite rich. Okay. So we have a seller, and the seller produces a quantity, yeah, which is not a unit good. So this will be important. I'll come back to that. Yeah, but a quantity, some quantity X, yeah, of a quality that can either be high or low. So binary quality, yeah, and this is sold then to a buyer. So one seller, one buyer, only binary quality. Yeah, if we have more quality, we would get into multidimensional screening, and we don't want to do that. Okay. So the seller's quality, high or low, is exogenous. Yeah. We could endogenize that, but we, of course, you want to start with the simplest setup. So we'll assume that the ex-ante probability of high quality is theta bar, and the low quality is counter probability 1 minus theta. Okay. Now we want that the seller, yeah, cannot really deduce what quality he has, yeah, because yeah, otherwise he would have full information, yeah. So in order to make that consistent with the model, we need to assume that the costs are independent of the quality. Okay, so the idea is the seller will have a machine that produces these goods. Yeah, this produces these are some costs running this machine, yeah, which we normalize to 0. Yeah, but from that he cannot infer whether he has high or low quality. And I think this makes sense in some aspect. otherwise not, but this is what we need if we want partial private information. Okay. So what about the buyer? Well, the buyer will be very standard. So quasi-linear utility function. The buyer gets a utility omega of x when the quality is omega, yeah, and he pays the price p for that. Okay. So we make, I think, completely standard assumptions about this utility function. Yeah, so it's a concave utility, decreasing marginal utility. Yeah, it is increasing for the first units, and at some point it's downward sloping. Yeah, because we have this marginal cost of 0. Yeah. And then the effect of quality is that if I consume a certain quantity X, I get more utility when it's of high quality than low quality. And here you see that we also have a single crossing condition. Also, the marginal utilities is higher for high quality. Yeah, but I think this is quite a standard what one would do if one sets up a model like this. Okay. Now, we can already now calculate what the efficient quantities are. Yeah, where simply the marginal utility is equal to marginal cost. Yeah, which is 0. Yeah, and because of single crossing, it means that the efficient quality the efficient quantity at high quality is larger than the efficient quality at low quality. Okay, which is very natural. Yeah? But this is important for us, yeah, because it means that information about omega is efficiency relevant. Yeah, and I'll come back to that. There are a lot of papers who don't assume that. Yeah, their model works well without it, but in our context, it is really important. Now, to make the notation simple, yeah, we normalize the utility from the efficient level of low quality, yeah, at 0, and for high quality, the efficient level at 1. Okay, so this is just a normalization, yeah, a linear transformation, yeah, so that makes notation simple, but does not affect results. Okay. Now, the idea is that the seller and the buyer, yeah, are interacting in the market game where we want the market game to be very simple. So we say the seller is basically making a take it or leave it offer to the buyer, a quantity X at a price P. Okay. So if the buyer has a belief of theta about that the quality is high, then his utility, his expected utility of a quantity X is this here. And we can then calculate what from the buyer's perspective, the right quantity is, given that he has this belief of theta. And of course, this lies in between XL star and XH star, and this is increasing with theta. So if the seller knows can anticipate the buyer's belief, and the buyer will not have any private information, so that will be the case here, yeah, then the optimal offer given a belief theta is to offer this X hat of theta, yeah, and then charge a price that extracts the whole utility from the consumer, yeah, giving rise to this utility profit function V of theta, which is kind of an indirect profit function of the monopolist. Okay, and because the way we set up the model, V of theta is increasing and strictly convex, this will be important. I'll come back to that when this matters. Okay, so let me skip this out of equilibrium belief idea. Yeah, if you worry about out of equilibrium belief, yeah, just take it that the buyer's belief are passive. Yeah, so that we don't run into the signaling issues. That's not a big problem, but yeah, we don't want to focus on that. Okay. So that what about the production possibilities, product technologies? What about information? Like I told you, the seller and the buyer start with identical beliefs about the high quality. The prior believes that it's theta bar. And then our idea is that the seller start building his machine, and he put in the machine, yeah, and doing some test runs. And from these test runs, he receives partial information, yeah, about, yeah, whether he has high or low quality. So he will update beliefs from theta bar to theta. Okay. And this theta will now be representing the seller's type, yeah, and his probability, yeah, that the quality is high. Okay, so the seller has better, but not full information about omega. We have partial private information. Okay. So the idea is that the private information generation for the seller is stochastic, leading to different types of sellers. And let us, for the sake of this presentation, assume that it has full support. Yeah, and of course, if we integrate over the thetas, this distribution f of theta, it has to be consistent with the prior. Okay, but this is a stochastic consistency requirement. Okay, so all this is common knowledge. Yeah, this is where we start. Okay, now suppose that this was the whole model. yeah, there's no certification possibilities, yeah, then the seller has a problem, yeah, because a type cannot credibly convey your private information. There's no way to credibly signal the information, the private information of the seller. Okay, so the buyer faces then a seller with private information. So you may think this is the Akerlof problem, but remember, yeah, the costs are independent of true quality. Yeah, so we don't have adverse selection. Yeah, because of this independence, which means that without any credible signaling possibilities, each type of the seller will sell this average quality at this price, yeah, like I did on the previous slide. Okay. Yeah. Of course, this outcome is inefficient because this is only the right quality when theta, yeah, this is not the right quality. It's not X star H or X star L. Yeah. And types larger than theta bar would really like that their information is revealed. Yeah. So this is this model generates automatically a demand for certification. So let me introduce the certifier now, and now also this distinction between how we model hard versus soft information, soft certification. So the idea will be that there will be a certifier C who sells certification to the seller S at some price T. Yeah, so a certification contract is a sigma, yeah, and a T, a price. And what is the sigma? The sigma is what you use to information design. Okay, so we call it a certification structure, but it's basically an information structure. There are certificates, signals, and then there are the probabilities with which I generate these signals, conditional on the true state. Okay, so this is fully in the line of information design. Yeah, so then we know that, yeah, if we have some certification structure, yeah, and we have some belief and some certificate pops up in one of the certificates, then we can update with Bayes' rule, yeah, and it depends then on the ratio of these pi's, yeah, how informative the signal is. Okay, and this is how we model that the certifier, yeah, can disclose information about omega, the hard information. So what about the private information? Well, we take it that the private information is really fundamental, so the certifier can also not see it. So he cannot use information design, yeah, the certification structure to disclose theta. Instead, yeah, the certifier may try to screen the types, yeah, so that theta is revealed via a message, an endogenous message, by the seller. Okay, so the overall idea of certification is that the certifier may not offer only one certification contract, but potentially a whole menu. Yeah, and then the seller picks his favorite item of the menu, and this now is publicly revealed. Yeah, just as the certificate CI. Yeah, and this public revelation of the screening item, yeah, now discloses information about theta, and this is how we model soft information. Okay, so I hope this is clear. But let me again point out the main issues so that we're all on the same page. Page 9. So the certifier, yeah, discloses hard information about omega, the fundamental state via sigma. And one way to do so is to do this completely uninformative. There's only one certificate, it's always given, yeah, and so this would be a completely uninformative signal structure. On the other extreme, we have a fully informative one, where there are two certificates, and certificate 0 is only given in the L state, and certificate 1 is only in the high state. Okay, and our idea is in line with information design that the certifier can design any information structure or certification structure at 0 cost. What about the soft information? The soft information about theta is then, like I said, disclosed via menu. So one menu you could think of coming from mechanism design is a full separation menu where we have a menu for each type. Yeah. And if you make this incentive compatible, yeah, then this would reveal, yeah, the type fully. Okay. By contrast, the pooling menu would not reveal this private information. Okay. And also here we assume that the certifier can design any menu, but now, in order to really make this informative, needs to ensure the credibility, yeah, via incentive compatibility. Okay. So let me point out the main point. Certification is costless. There are no direct costs. Yeah, but soft certification requires an indirect incentive compatibility cost. Yeah, And now I want to suggest to you, and this was our suggestion when we started with this paper, that this suggestion suggests intuition that the certifier prefers to use hard information because there's no indirect incentive compatibility cost for that. Yeah. So if you think like that, as we did, yeah, you are exactly there where I want you to be, yeah, because this is false. It's completely the wrong way around, and I hope our model can explain why this naive intuition, yeah, is wrong. Okay. So let me summarize finally the timing. I think you got the timing, but I want to be precise. So first, nature selects the fundamental state and the private information from the seller. The seller only knows the private information theta. Then the certifier comes into the picture and designs a menu. Yeah, this menu is publicly announced. The seller picks from a menu item or not. Yeah, this pick is public. And then the certificate is drawn according to its probability distribution. That is really the omega. Yeah, and this certificate is public, so it's not that you can keep it, and yeah, it's directly revealed to the market. And then the seller makes a profit maximizing offer, anticipating these the buyer's belief. Okay, and the big question is, what is the perfect Bayesian equilibrium of this game? Yeah, and of course we are more interested in certain aspects of this. Yeah, what menu does the certifier pick here? Yeah, how much information does it reveal about theta and by omega? Yeah, and just as a benchmark, yeah, in order to have the first best efficiency, yeah, what a certifier would do that's not a monopolist, yeah, but only interested in efficiency, yeah, he or she would reveal omega fully, irrespective of theta, so that the efficient outcome is then chosen by the seller, yeah, XL star in low quality and XX star in high quality. Okay, and we want to see now whether we have distortion from the fact that we have a monopolistic certifier. Yeah. Now I already suggested an answer which I told you was wrong. So what will be the answer? Yeah, the certifier's optimal menu exhibits full separation. Yeah, so a full revelation of theta, a full use of soft information, yeah, and exhibit at most a partial revelation of omega. Yeah, and in some contexts, no information at omega at all. Okay, so it's completely the opposite of the wrong intuition that I tried to push on you. Yeah, so I hope you find that interesting. Okay. So in order to provide an intuition, yeah, I want to go through 3 benchmarks to see, to let you see how things work, yeah, and why this intuition that I try to push on you, yeah, does not work in the certification context. Okay. Now, before I do that, let me go back to this old friend of ours, this V of theta, yeah, which I introduced before, yeah, and I told you this is going to be a very important function, yeah. So V is increasing and strictly convex. Yeah, we talked about that. I think for convexity in this context is very natural. Yeah, but it will be important. Yeah. On top of that, yeah, what will be important and will play a role is, even though the V is convex, yeah, there's still a lot of room, yeah, for the shape of it. And apparently, what turns out to be important is the average slope versus the geometric slope. So what I mean with that is, this is our V of theta. It's 0 here, 1 there, and it's convex. That's all according to our assumptions. So let me take 2 points, Q and P. Yeah? And now the average slope is simply this slope here. Yeah? The slope at Q is the tangent here, and the slope at P is tangent there. Yeah? And now I compare this to multiplying the blue one with the green one and taking the square root, which is the geometric mean. Yeah, and this can be larger or smaller, and that depends on the real shape of V of theta, and this will play a role. Okay, but let me first start with the benchmarks, yeah, which already hope to tell you a lot about what's going on. So Gorkem, am I going too quick or is it okay? Okay, good. So let us go to a very simple benchmark first. Suppose that the certifier can only use the uninformative certification. Yeah, which I introduced before. Yeah, no information being revealed by the certification, neither about omega nor about theta. Okay. Now, if you're not familiar with this literature, you would say, okay, but then yeah, this is not helpful for the certifier. Yeah. Now it turns out, that actually, with this uninformative certification, the certifier can fully extract generated surplus by the seller and the buyer. So this is not our result. This goes back to Laziri, surprising result to Laziri, that even if the certifier uses does not provide any information to the market, he can still extract the whole generated surplus. Now, how does that work? Well, he offers the uninformative structure at a price of the average V of theta, basically offering a full pooling menu. So no information revelation about theta, no soft information, and no hard information. And then if the certifier offers this, then we have a perfect Bayesian equilibrium with full pooling, where all the types buy, pay for this uncertified, uninformative certification, because if they don't, they are seen as a bad type. Okay, so here's the formal argument. I will not go through it. It's a result from Laziri. But the point is that if certification does not reveal anything, also in our model, like in Laziri, we have a fully informative, uninformative certification structure that extracts all the generated rents. And there's a nice wording. I think I heard it from Najib once. This is called parasitic certification. So the certifier does not supply any services to the seller and the buyer. Still extract. It's a parasite. The issue in our model is that the certifier extracts all rent, but they're of course not first best. In contrary to Laziri or other models where information has no social value, here it has social value, so it's not first best, even though the certifier extracts all the generated rents, but they are not optimal. Okay. So let me go to the second benchmark, and say and show to you that with soft information, and the full disclosure of theta, the certifier does better, in a similar sense. So we now still have the uninformative certification, but now the certifier offers a screening menu, offers a menu where there's only the uninformative certification structure in there, but at different prices. And these prices match exactly the phi of theta of different seller type theta. And this is just an extension of Lazari's result. This menu is incentive compatible. Everybody now has an incentive to pick their menu, even though it's all the same certification structure. And again, the certifier extract the whole surplus. Okay, so here now the certifier fully reveals theta, but nothing about omega, only uses soft information. And then it still can extract all the rents, but of course the rents now are higher. Because at least the theta is revealed, and we can have the efficient quantity given theta rather than this average efficient quantity x hat. Okay. So what does this benchmark show us? You may find it strange, but it shows us that basically there's no trade-off between rent extraction and certifying private information. Okay. Now let me move to the third benchmark, the final benchmark, and focus on the other generation of certification information, the hard information. So suppose instead the certifier uses full information certification, offers a fully informative certification structure. Okay. Now, then of course, he can sell it only at one price T. They are all the same. It's one price T. So consider the pooling menu. No soft information is being used, only hard information, and that to the fullest. Now my question to you is, what is the T, if the certifier wants to make sure that everybody, maybe except for the theta zero guy, wants to buy this pooling menu? Okay. So this is not a trick question, but I just want to give you 5 seconds time to think about what the right T is, and to have some pause in my presentation. Okay. So the answer is 0. Okay, why is that? Because if the certifier fully reveals the fundamental state, then the seller will get 0 in the low state and one in the high state. So if the seller has private information theta, he expects to obtain theta from this type of certification. Okay. Now, if I want all the types to buy, yeah, larger than 0 to buy, I have to set this for t is 0. Okay. So yes, hard information. Yeah, by using hard information, the certifier can reveal all the fundamental state, the whole fundamental state. Yeah, but it's not so interesting for the certifier to do so, because then it has 0 profits. Okay. And here, yeah, the only difference is, or the difference is now beliefs are affected by the hard information transmission, evidence, yeah, and now the certifier cannot extract any rents, yeah, even though efficiency, from an efficient point of perspective, this is generating the first best. Okay, so this benchmark now shows you the following insight, the economic insight, that there is a trade-off between rent extraction and certifying new information. Okay, so yeah, what the benchmark suggests, yeah, is that the certifier faces no trade-off between disclosure versus profit maximization when the information disclosure is soft, whereas there is a trade-off between profit maximization and disclosure when information is hard. Okay. And this now suggests another intuition, or actually a theorem, yeah, that the certifier's optimal menu of certification contracts is as follows. It discloses the seller's private information fully, and it discloses new information at most partially. Okay. This then has straightforward policy implications. There are no monopolistic distortion with respect to soft certification, yeah, and we have monopolistic distortion with respect to hard certification. There's too little certification, information revelation. Okay. And now the whole paper is about basically proving this. Yeah, 90% of the paper is about proving this theorem. And although the intuition, I hope, is clear from the benchmarks, yeah, it takes us quite a lot of work, for us at least, to obtain this result, to show this result. Okay. So I will not show you the complete proof, but I want to give you to the basic steps, how we do it, yeah, and some more intuition, yeah. So basically, we do a two-step proof. Yeah. So we first focus on these full separation menus, yeah, and we characterize the optimal ones. Yeah. So when the certifier uses soft information to the fullest, yeah, then we can relatively easily show that it's never optimal to fully reveal omega. Basically, already did this in the benchmark. Yeah. What we then do is that if you look at the optimal full separation menu, yeah, it uses at most 3 certificates. Yeah. This requires some work. Yeah. And this was surprising to us because there's only a binary state. Yeah. So from information design, you would expect, yeah, and these extreme point results, that it would require two certificates. Yeah. But the problem is the private information, and here you see the interaction between the private information and the new information. Yeah, because of the private information, we have to deal with a monotonicity constraint, yeah, and that may mess up the optimality of 2 certificates. Now, what we then do is digging a little bit deeper, and we show that the curvature of V theta, comparing the geometric mean to the average, yeah, it tells us a lot about the optimal certification full separation contract. In fact, then we have no problems with the monotonicity constraint. 2 certificates are you need at most 2 certificates, yeah, and we get some information about what type of use is done from the certification. Okay. And then we do the second step, yeah. And then after getting these insights about the optimal full separation, yeah, it is enough information for us, luckily, yeah, to show that full separation menus are optimal. And this is a lot of works, and maybe we can do it simpler, but we didn't find the way to do it. And the problem is really, again, the private information, the interaction with the private information. Yeah. So how we prove it is we show that if the certifier does not use a full separation menu, then the certifier will pool some subtypes, yeah, and the certifier can then actually increase the profits, yeah, by separating these subtypes. but at the same time keeping the seller's information rents constant. Okay, so this is not the optimal way to increase profits, yeah, but this is a feasible way to increase profits because it doesn't upset the monotonicity constraint. Yeah, and that this works. Yeah, luckily this works, and this is how we do it. Okay, so that's how the proof works. So let me walk you a little bit more into the details of it. That has some provides also more economic intuition. Okay, so let's start with this maximal disclosure mechanisms. Yeah, these certification contracts that fully reveal the theta. Okay, yeah, so it's a complete menu, and they have to be incentive compatible. Yeah, yeah. Now, if the certifier offers this, what happens? Now the buyer basically updates his belief in 2 steps. Yeah, from the pick of the seller's item here. Yeah, the buyer basically learns the theta. Yeah, so we have the information playing field being leveled, it raised completely. Yeah, that's the first step. Yeah, and then yeah, one may have hard information. Yeah, from the certificate, it raises both the belief of the seller and the buyer symmetrically. Okay. And then, yeah, if it raises to this value here, then the seller can extract, because he's a monopolist and the buyer has no private information, this revenue here. So the important thing is, of course, what is this incentive compatibility? Yeah, which I suggested will, in the false intuition, wrong intuition, plays an important role. Well, actually, yeah, it's quite standard if you know these mechanism design problems. Yeah, you just write down what the optimal payoff is of the seller, yeah, the privately informed party, yeah, when he tells the truth. So if theta tells the reports the truth theta, yeah, and this has to be larger than when theta reports something else, theta prime. Okay, so this is the usual incentive constraints. They look a little bit different, yeah, but essentially the same. It's in the Mayerson tradition that we then also can characterize them, yeah, by a monotonicity constraint. Yeah, and here you see the monotonicity constraint the first time, and the payoff equivalence. Yeah, so this is totally standard mechanism design. Yeah, it looks a little bit different, yeah, but we can use this exactly as in Mayerson to generate a virtual surplus. That what the certifier is actually doing if it concentrates on full separation, yeah, on soft information, full soft information, yeah, it's maximizing the market surplus minus an information rent to the seller, and has to respect its monotonicity constraints. Okay. Now, maximizing this virtual surplus, yeah, means economically maximizing two things. We need to find information about the optimal number of certificates. What is the C of theta? Yeah. And then we want to have these probabilities, yeah, of pi's, yeah, with which these certificates are then revealed. Okay, so there are 2 things we have to do. So the optimal number of certificates, yeah, I already told you, we can reasonably quickly show that 3 certificates are needed at most. Yeah, so this is an optimality result. Yeah, but in general, we cannot lower it further because then we will come into problems with the monotonicity constraint. Yeah. Indeed, yeah, if the monotonicity would not be a problem, it's slack. If we know that in advance, then 2 certificates would be most that the certifier needs, and then the analysis is much simpler than with 3. Yeah. Now, if you're a mechanism design person, you would think, oh, I just assume now some assumption to make the monotonicity slack. Yeah, and in standard mechanism design, you can introduce some more monotone hazard rate condition. Yeah, this does regretfully not work here. Okay. And this is why we went to this other approach by looking at the average slope and the geometric mean, yeah, by which, yeah, we then can show that 2 certificates under these conditions are sufficient if the average and the geometric slope are ordered for all points PQ. Yeah, and then you can even say that there are no false negatives on the one order and no false positive on the other order. Okay, we also provide a sufficient condition that depends only on 1 variable rather than 2, and this then quickly shows you that, for instance, when v theta is a power function, and then this curvature measure is increasing. So we're in this case here. Okay. So then we want to do the optimality of the full separation. Yeah. Let me tell you why intuitively this is not automatically fulfilled. Yeah. Because if you do not fully separate, yeah, there's an advantage. Yeah. You have less incentive constraints to deal with. Yeah, but of course, the disadvantage, there is less soft information being revealed, and you can extract, generate less rents. Okay. Now, what we then show is, yeah, then we consider non-full separation menus, yeah, which means that the menu partition the types, yeah, in pools, yeah. Now the updating works like this. There's a little bit updating from a show of the picked soft information, yeah, and then yeah, there might be some hard information raising both beliefs, but still there is private information, yeah, of the seller by the buyer, and the seller can receive this. Okay. And then I told you that we actually can show that this such pooling into menus, yeah, in partitions is revenue dominated by the maximal disclosure one. Yeah, and we have to deal with this monotonicity constraint, this incentive compatibility. Yeah, and I won't go through this in detail. Yeah. So I also see I'm at 40 minutes somewhat. So, yeah, this takes us quite a long time in the appendix to show, to do. Okay. So, yeah, so there are some definite results and also some possibilities. And we also provide some numerical examples, yeah, that all these possibilities are, yeah, obtained in very natural parameterizations. So suppose the seller's type is uniformly distributed, yeah, and the V function is quadratic. This comes from a quadratic utility function of the buyer. Yeah. Well, because this is a power function, we know that this scaled curvature measure has a positive is increasing. So we only have two certificates that we have to look for, and we already know that one of the certificates will never be given in the high state. Okay. Then, yeah, in this case, we actually can show that also the certificate Q is also not given in the L state, meaning that optimal certification fully reveals theta, yeah, but nothing about omega. Yeah, they all get the same certificate. Yeah. So this is an example, yeah, where indeed the optimal certification reveals fully theta and nothing about omega. But as soon as we change something here, so rather than a uniform distribution, have a quadratic distribution, but still keeping the V quadratic, yeah, we have that still that you want to fully reveal theta, but you may also want to reveal a little bit about omegas. Yeah, and you can compute what you want to do. You want to do that for high thetas. On the other hand, if we keep the uniform one and take the V function as more than a power to the power 2, yeah, also then you want to reveal some hard information, quite similar to this case here. Okay. Now you also have V functions where this measure is 0, meaning that any type of hard information is optimal. Okay. So yeah, so I'm doing quite well, meaning that maybe I'm talking too fast. Yeah. So my last slide is basically the conclusion. Yeah. So we consider monopolistic certification. Yeah. Where explicitly where the certifier can disclose new and private information. Yeah. This certification reveals new information by an information acquisition device, and certification of soft information turns it into a screening device. Yeah. Here are some intermediate results. Yeah, but I think the interesting thing is that the maximal disclosure of private information is optimal. Yeah, it's in the interest of the certifier, the monopolistic certifier. Yeah, so there are no distortions here. Yeah, and concerning the hard information, yeah, that will definitely not be fully revealed. So there will be some inefficiencies there. Yeah, we will not have the efficient quantities being revealed because the monopolist because of the monolith certification. And that's because there's a trade-off between rent extraction and efficiency due to the hard information, but not the soft information. Okay. So I think I'm right on time.
I'm happy to ask an additional question.
Hi, Najib.
Hi, always great to see you.
Yeah, well, it's great that you have the time, and
Oh,
you
no, no,
even
of course.
noticed the 1 hour time difference because of the summer time. Very good.
Another question that I was really puzzled by the benchmark two that you offered, and
Let me go.
which is the being able to sort of expand. Yeah, that's right. So this took me some time to follow, and it's striking. And one of the things that understanding this benchmark led me to wonder about, which is suppose it's the case that my costs did partially depend on my type. And so I wanted to encode it in a way that doesn't create full information, but you could imagine a cost structure that gives me a signal, partially informative signal. So I've got some distribution of costs that depend on my type. It's a partial informative signal. This creates a channel of signaling, right? Through my cost as well. And so I was just trying to understand the role of the assumption that my costs don't depend upon my type at all, in particular in assuring the ICs being satisfied in a setting in this kind of benchmark. Um,
So yeah, so if the costs are dependent on theta, then the first problem that may occur is that we are in an Akerlof setting, right? Yeah.
and
So
partially Akerlof, partially spent signaling as well,
right.
right?
Is there spent signaling? I
Because, maybe it's the case
via
that
this.
certain types are willing to produce higher quantity than other types at a given. I
Mm,
don't know.
yeah. So no, thanks for this question. I don't think we thought about this. Yeah, I'm now looking at Gorkem. Yeah, who is very quiet. So um, good point. Yeah. So would this work? Yeah. So this works because yeah, in the end, everybody is indifferent.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. So
And
if
so that,
I
that makes me
now.
indifferent between my allocation and the allocation I would get from misreporting my theta.
Mm,
And if I had costs that depended a little bit on theta, I wondered about this. It's a curious feature of this benchmark. It's very striking, very interesting.
yeah. Okay. So I basically see it as an extension of the Lizeri result. Yeah. A little bit, but you're right. Yeah. So at the top of the head, I cannot. I see that maybe this is sensitive to that assumption. Yeah. That because if I now would be able to extract all the surplus, everybody, yeah, every type has theta. Yeah. And then it's not incentive compatible anymore. I would. Yeah. And I have to do. Yeah. So maybe I cannot even do that in an incentive compatible way. Yeah. Then the question is, of course, yeah, is the optimal theta revealing this way, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
and then we have maybe, yeah, but I'm now speculating, yeah, but then we have to, yeah, maybe see that, yeah, it's not full disclosure of theta, but the fullest you can do, yeah, that extracts from, I don't know, yeah,
Exactly.
but
Exactly. Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so good point. Yeah, now I have to think about yeah your story about the machine, and then I still learn that the cost, and that is yeah. So that could be actually the signal, right? So you see the cost of the machine, and then you say, oh, but if this is the cost, then my theta is like this. So you can tell stories where that make complete sense. So that's right. So that's what you
Mhm.
maybe were thinking about. Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. So yeah, no, good idea. Yeah. So we'll look at that. Yeah. So sorry that I can't on the spot
No, no, of course, of
answer
course.
that.
It's a really interesting paper. Yeah.
Yeah, then Antonio asked in the chat for the trade-off that you highlight, it is crucial that the buyer demands more than one unit. Exactly. So I told you we have yeah that our model is not a unit good model. Yeah, yeah, and that's important. Yeah, because with a unit good model, yeah, like Lizeri does, yeah, the information is not social valuable. Yeah, so the v function will be linear.
Yeah, and there is no, yeah, and then there is no, yeah, not even social value in revealing theta. Yeah, and that's what the continuous X basically generates. Yeah, and so I told you that there are other papers doing a little bit, but looking at partial private information. Yeah, and they don't do that in a demand market setup. Yeah, and then we have a different v of theta function coming out. Yeah, which is not convex. Yeah, and then you may have very different results. Yeah, so I think it's relatively easy to see that if v of theta is in our framework would be concave, yeah, then information would actually be bad. Yeah, and yeah, then you don't want you don't have this result, of course, because you have to pay information rent plus yeah, disclosure and you lose actually from the full disclosure socially. Yeah, and it depends on the type of model then what the v function looks like. We think that this seller buyer with the quality is a very simple micro-founded model here, which makes sense, and then it's very natural that this v of theta is actually has value. The theta has value, social value. Yes, so Antonio, that's exactly yeah, you got it. Okay, so I'm talking too much. Yeah. Yeah, so that's one of the main intuitions what we get from this model is the v of theta is important, and the convexity is what's really driving our results, and that's also what sets our results apart from other studies of similar things, yeah, in other setups. Yeah. And I hope that provides intuition about what's going on.